The big news of the morning is that there is confirmation that Chinese have landed in South Africa. ICBC Bank has confirmed it will be buying 20% of Standard Bank at a price of about a 20% premium to yesterday's share price close. And there's 38.5 billion rand investment from China. Second biggest one, or second large one rather, to be in the country, dwarfs the deal that was done with Ridge Mining a couple of years ago. There are, however, some direct Chinese investments, this is from mainland China, into South Africa that are out of the public eye. But this is by far the biggest one, and maybe heralds a whole lot more to come in the financial services sector. That's an area where we're going to be focusing for the next few minutes with Rene Otto. He's the founding chief executive of OUTsurance. Rene, one would have thought with the successes of OUTsurance that, particularly if you're the guy who's there and starts it off, that it's a safe place to stay. Yet you bailed from OUTsurance a couple of years ago. What happened?
Alec, yeah, it's an interesting question. I think a lot of people always talk about managing yourself out of a job. I think it literally happened. The guys that in my management team were just capable, and they've proven after I left that they could carry on. I think essentially more a builder of businesses than a maintainer. And I think the building phase was over. We had 18 months of profitability at the time. And I won't say the fun was over for me, but the majority of the fun was over at the time that I left.
Did you go straight to Sanlam, or were you
No, I was, and I think it's important to make that point. I didn't just jump ship from First Rand to Sanlam. I was, there's basically been a 5-year gap since I left OUTsurance. So the previous 3 years I've worked, I was CEO of Channel Life, which initially was owned by PSG, and then Sanlam bought 50%, and that's where my contact with the Sanlam guys started, and eventually led to discussions around this new initiative.
We'll talk about that in a moment, but Channel Life is really interesting. It's taken a multi-level marketing, which has got a bad name in South Africa, yet seems to have got through all its problems in the most advanced capitalist society in the United States. How did you use multi-level marketing at Channel Life to good effect?
Well, I think, I don't know why it's got a bad name. I think it probably...
Pyramid schemes.
Yeah, pyramid schemes, but this is really not a pyramid scheme because you're selling something of substance. You're selling a policy, a funeral policy. In the typical pyramid schemes, there's just not a big enough market for what you're trying to sell. I found that multi-level marketing isn't that far removed from the stock sell concept, which we know in the traditional developing market is quite an established concept.
So explain how it works.
Well, you basically would buy a policy, and then you would register yourself as a business owner. You would then introduce new candidates, and if we're successful to sell to them, you would earn a commission, or a percentage of their premium as a commission. And it's sort of a multi-layer.
So then as they bring in new candidates, you earn a percentage of that too?
You stay in for about 6 or 7 or 8 levels, depending on how you structure it. Now,
someone's getting hurt somewhere, surely.
Why?
Well, the commissions that are being generated by the early comers will be a multiple of those who come in later.
Yeah, well, I suppose if you accept that you're finally going to run out of potential clients, that the guy that came in last has no more people to sell to. But I mean, if you consider the fact that the market is so big that there's only, I think, a saturation level. There's only about 12% of the market that had funeral policies. I think it's going to take a long time. I mean, it would be a pleasure if you get to. Can build a business the size of
American Amway has been very successful. Here in South Africa, Tupperware parties.
Yeah,
is it the same concept?
Yeah, it's very much the same concept. What I particularly liked about it, I must say, an end of the financial services market that I've just never been exposed to, because in the past I've worked more in the upper end of the market. Is that you're really affording people who would, in terms of the phase legislation, not qualified to become brokers, simply because they don't have the education, they're part of the lost generation. In this way, in a very informal way, they can become a sort of a broker in the sense that they collect and they bring people into the fold, and as long as they look after them and make sure that their premiums are paid monthly, they earn effectively. It's a sort of an informal way of being a broker.
Well, I guess there are all different ways of addressing issues in the South African or the developing market, but much more interesting, I guess, from a broader perspective, from a first world perspective, is what you're going to be doing in direct insurance now with Sanlam, going up against year-old OUTsurance.
Yeah, that's correct, Alec. I think that what's important is the position is direct financial services and as opposed to direct insurance.
So insurance is only one part of it?
Yeah, by definition, yeah. So I think, for me to just copy or replicate what has been done before is really not a challenge. And I think it took me a couple of years to see new opportunities in the direct financial services arena, and that's why I was attracted to this opportunity. I think if you look at what has happened in the last 10 years, it's really been 10 years since, almost 10 years since OUTsurance was launched. What has happened technologically with the internet users in South Africa, a whole new generation X or generation Y or whatever they want to call themselves are coming through the ranks, people who sit on Facebook in the middle of the night and doing things for themselves, being more open to the direct way of doing things. People who are a whole generation that are not loyal to existing brands. They take to brands like Google and MySpace, and Facebook means more to them than traditional brands that you and I would respect. So I think keeping up with the times, there are opportunities in financial services.
So you're going to be targeting that internet generation selling through the internet?
That would certainly be one of the areas. It would certainly be one of the areas. The reality is
right, though, because Liberty tried it, Old Mutual tried it, they lost bundles, both of them.
Yeah, well, as I say, it would be part of the marketing. The reality is young people don't have money. But they become middle-aged, they become people who have money. And I think the direct players at the moment already have success by targeting internet users. It's already successful. So we're not quite on the bleeding edge.
Well, the problem with Sanlam, of course, is it owns the majority share in Santam, which is the biggest short-term insurer in South Africa, and presumably your business would cannibalize that client base.
Alex, yes. I think that the key decision that had to be made was, is the joint size of the cake going to be bigger 5 or 10 years down the line or smaller? Because the cannibalization is in any case taking place. So the question is, are you going to sit still while the business walk out the back door to the dial directs or the OUTsurance? Or do you say, I want to get a part of that pie? I think Santam is incredibly well positioned with their broker relationships. They've actually grown that part of the business well. They've proven themselves there.
Who's the spiritual force behind this? Is it Johan van Zyl?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Johan's vision. And I think if you've watched and what's happened to Sanlam over the last 4 or 5 years, you can see the success track record is there. I think it's an amazing story. And I don't want to speak on Johan's behalf, but maybe it's time to enter into some uncharted territory. This is one of the initiatives, and hopefully we could add to the success story.
Well, Rene Otto, the Chief Executive, as I said earlier, of Channel Life, and also the new direct channel that Sanlam's going to be going to market with. And you've got to believe that these guys know what they're doing. This is a new area, it's a new frontier that's opening up. It's one of those areas that is giving the traditional sellers of insurance products sleepless nights. And if you were to bring in multi-level marketing on top of internet sales, wow, what a powerful combination for somebody who's been there before with OUTsurance. It's an interesting story and one that we'll be keeping a very close eye on. But right now, it's time for you to keep an eye on what's happening in the United States. Don't forget, later this afternoon we'll be bringing you all the details of the Chinese acquisition of 20% of Standard Bank, South Africa's most valuable banking group.